Hello and welcome to my video. I have a very interesting topic to talk about, a rather controversial one, of course. Now, I have watched a lot of videos and I've done some research about race myself, especially blacks and whites. I wanted to give my own opinion on this, so I decided to, okay, let me create a video and let me talk about this topic. So the question is, are whites better than blacks? Now, the easy answer, of course, is yes, they are. And by blacks, of course, I mean in general, blacks, Africans, Afro-Caribbeans, whatever you have it. In general, whites are better than them. I mean, the proof is everywhere. Nations that are substantially populated by white people are better off socially, economically, technologically. The list basically goes on. So pretty much in every aspect, I mean, I'll go as far as to say that without colonialism, Africans would pretty much be living in around the 13th century, for crying out loud. They'll still be believing that the earth is flat, maybe. They'll be living in huts, as some of them still do. People in villages still live in huts, of course. There will be high death rates because, without the knowledge of medicine, many diseases around there will be uncurable. They will not be able to cure their diseases, and then they will die prematurely. That's just what's going to happen. Diseases will be creeping up everywhere. People will be dying from simple diseases, basically, that can be cured in seconds. So they might still be keeping slaves and many other unprecedented things, really. So now I just wanted to say, I did not create this video to offend anyone. Sometimes the truth, of course, hurts. The truth hurts. People do not want to hear about these things. So that's why many people just stay away from these things, and don't want to talk about them. But of course, when we hear the truth about us and what's going on, then we're able to use it to then make our lives better. Now, can Africans ever improve their lives and become advanced industrially, technologically, without outside help? I mean, without the help of the West, without the help of the Chinese, can they improve themselves industrially, technologically? That's what we're talking about here. Can they ever improve themselves without help? Can they do these things on their own? So, or are they literally incapable of thinking logically, innovatively, intelligently? I mean, what on earth is going on here? So has evolution caused blacks to develop certain characteristics while lacking others? I mean, we obviously see that certainly in the physical aspect, black people, dominate in physical sports, of course. So, maybe something is going on here that has to do with evolution. Am I crazy here, guys? I mean, something wrong with me, guys, for asking these questions? So, in this video, I just basically want to go through several things that I feel could be, the reasons why, the reasons for these shortcomings of Africans, blacks as a whole, the reason for their shortcoming, what is going on here. These are basically things that, many people have repeated, but I just want to basically speak about them here and give my own opinion about them, basically. So I'm going to then say that, mind you, these are basically just generalizations. So I'm fully aware that there are, of course, individual blacks that are far more intelligent than some white people. Of course, I know that it's everywhere, basically. And of course, these black people, these intelligent blacks, are trying. They're working very hard to improve their people. But there's no denying the fact that majority have some real problems. They have some real problems, guys. So firstly, I want to talk about IQ. So, of course, IQ in itself, there's been a lot of controversy about the topic of IQ in psychology, whether or not it is an accurate way of measuring intelligence in the first place. So, rather than saying that, whites have a higher average IQ than blacks, some people are already denying whether IQ is a proper way of measuring intelligence. But whether it is a proper way of measuring intelligence or not, that's not the question here. But the question is, on average, there's a huge IQ gap between black scores and between black IQ scores and white IQ scores. Really, guys. So, many people try to argue about this cause by saying that, of course, most blacks, especially those that live in African countries, they live in poor areas. They don't have much education. There maybe they're suffering from malnutrition, basically. So it's only natural that their critical thinking skills, of course, are rather kept dormant and unutilized because of lack of education and malnutrition. But I don't think this is true, guys. This is just not true. I mean, what about blacks living in Western countries? They attend the same school as whites. They eat the same food. Do you see where I'm getting at here? So they still haven't shown an increase in IQ. And in fact, most of these blacks in Western countries are causing some real troubles out there. They're basically criminals. They're committing crimes. They're doing all this crazy stuff, really. So I mean, something has to be looked at here, basically. So this basically gets me into my next reason, to my next item on the list, so which is basically culture. So I'm thinking that culture might be another reason why blacks, Africans, doing as well as their white counterparts. So I'm saying I have nothing against culture here. So in fact, culture is very good. So culture is can be a very strong thing, basically, if it's done well. So in fact, I mean, as we know, culture brings people together. So people with the same ideals, similarity, identity, conformity. So imagine, guys, if there's an African culture with this idea that is just centered around hard work, self-improvement, discipline, and even our government just say innovative thinking. Think about this, an African culture, with the idea just centered around, we have to work hard, we have to improve ourselves, we have to think innovatively, we have to educate our people. Our people need to be aware of things. Just imagine how the society would be like. I mean, they would not be insulted by the Western world. I mean, we do hear that the last time Donald Trump basically said that Africa is a shithole, and it's really, it's hard to say this, but it is true. Africa is indeed a shithole. I mean, of course, we think we have all this technology, we have all these things, we have cars, we have some tall buildings here and there, and then we think that we're doing well now. No, we have to improve our people first. If we can improve our people first, then Africa will improve on its own without help from anybody, really. So that's something that has to be looked at. So the culture is very important, as we've seen in the Western world. Blacks living in the Western world, American blacks, with their hip hop culture, it has basically moved blacks backwards. It has absolutely hindered the development of the youths there. I mean, it's crazy out there, guys. So I mean, of course, the hip hop culture in its early days was basically based around just feel good type music for people to dance around. It has a nice beat that people that the rapper will basically follow, and people will listen to it, and people enjoy this music. And it wasn't that bad from the beginning, but as we've seen, as it's gone on, it has gotten real worse. And it now promotes, it's gone to the extent it's basically promoting violence, sexualizing women, disrespect towards authority. I mean, the youths listen to these songs. I mean, all the way to Africa, African youths are listening to these songs. I mean, as we've seen now with social media and Facebook and WhatsApp, all these things are reaching African youths now, and it's affecting them. And this is a very, very big problem. I mean, nobody's really talking about this. No black leaders are really talking about this. If they are, they're not enough, basically. So something has to be done. Otherwise, the future of black people, basically, we might end up being colonized again by these white people. That seems like the only the only way out of this for us, guys. So another thing that I basically want to talk about is short-term thinking. Of course, I'm sure there's a lot of white people that have this, the black people that don't have short-term thinking, of course. But I'm just saying that Africans, metaphorically, Africans seem they prefer you to give them fish rather than learning how to fish. So they prefer you handing them a fish rather than them asking you, hey, wait a minute, how did you get this fish? I mean, this is amazing. How did you get this? Can you teach me how I can get my own fish? Can you help me? Most Africans do not think this way, and this is basically one of the biggest problems that is happening in Africa. They are way too dependent. They're depending on whites. They're dependent over other black people that are trying to make it in their in lives, and they're pulling these people down. So they only think about short-term success. They have to find ways to improve their lives. There's this story, a very interesting story that I like, about a story of a fisherman. So who every single day he'd go out in the river, and he would use his bare hands to try to catch fish. So he would basically use his bare hands to try to catch fish. So every day he would catch one fish, and he would eat that fish every day, and then he would be hungry the next day, and then he has to do the same routine over and over again, until one day that he decided, wait a minute, let me don't fish for this day. Instead, let me find a way that I can get more fish. Let me find a tool. Let me make something that can help me get more fish. So he basically created a tool, a simple spear. And by spending that whole day without basically eating anything, he was risking his life. I mean, he could have died, but he spent that day, he took a risk. He thought innovatively, and he said, okay, he then created this spear, and then he used the spear, and then what happened? He then caught 2 fish. And then from that 2 fish, he's able to eat one of the fish, and then he's able to keep the other fish, basically. And then that gives him more time to then devise even new ways to fish. And then he basically improve his life. He can then turn it into a business. He can just be more productive, basically, and it's really great. So this is something that I think that we should look into, guys. So thank you very much for listening to my video. I didn't wish to offend anybody. If I did, this is just something that I'm really passionate about this, and I just wanted to talk about it. So you can go ahead and like my video, to help me out. So thank you very much, guys. So you can subscribe to my channel as well. I'm going to be making more and more videos about different topics, different things that I feel that I'm interested in, that I want to talk about. So you go ahead and do that. So thank you very much, guys. See you later. See you in the next video, guys. Out.